Time for another event, boys and girls. I have a good feeling about this one. Let's go! Gosh darn it! Hey guys, this is Tabiasobi, and today is all about Noctis. No, not that Noctis. Why do all these characters have to be such pretty boys? Unlike me. Yeah, I'm talking about the Azur Lane event that puts some extra English in your doc. Aurora Noctis. Noctis, by the way, is Latin for night. I know because I googled it. Hey, if it's on the internet, it must be true. On that note, here is a breakdown to help you get the most out of the event. At the top of the list, of course, are the ships. We all know where Azur Lane's bread is buttered after all. One caveat is that I haven't had a chance to fully test these ships, so take what I say with a grain of salt. Or a handful of salt. Get your salt right here. So for this event, there are 6 main ships to look out for. These would be the Royal Navy ships Howe, Perseus, or is it Perseus? Hermione, Eagle, Valiant, and Icarus. Of those, 4 can only be acquired via the construction pool, so those are the ones that you'll need to get with your precious cubes. Hopefully, that little bit of a slow period prior to the event allowed you to replenish your cube supply. Been there, done that. Anyway, as for the 4 ships that are only available from the construction pool, those would be Howe, Perseus, Valiant, and Eagle. Now Howe is arguably the best ship from the event from a performance standpoint. After all, she's rated as a Tier 0 battleship in both the Chinese Wiki tier list as well as Usagi-sensei's tier list. And there's a good reason why. Howe boasts an excellent barrage through her synchronized strike skill that can be fired every 15 seconds, increases the reload and accuracy stats of other battleships, battle cruisers, and aviation battleships by 20% for 8 seconds when maxed out, and can also target foes without needing to take up the middle position of your backline, which is a big deal. Her second skill, Covenant of the Immortal Knights, boosts her firepower and reload stats by 12% when maxed out. The skill also provides an additional firepower and anti-air stat buff to Howe if she's sorted with either King George V, Prince of Wales, Duke of York, Monarch, or 3 or more Royal Navy ships. In short, Howe is pretty stacked in more ways than one, especially when it comes to her huge, massive damage potential. Yeah, I'm talking about her offense. Bunch of degenerates. You know who you are. Moving on to the ship I am actually looking forward to the most from the event, that would be the light carrier Perseus. Now, while her stats aren't impressive as far as offense goes, she's actually ranked as a Tier 0 ship again by both the Chinese Wiki and Usagi-sensei's tier list, this time though for healing. See, in addition to being able to heal your Vanguard by 7% of their max HP, she can also heal your backline by 3.5%. And if that wasn't enough, her Waters of Styx skill also lets her heal the ships in her fleet by 1% of their max HP every 20 seconds, and also the ships on your other active fleets by 3%, which is great if the other fleet happens to be, say, a boss fleet that ended up sortying prior to a boss battle for some reason, and then just needs a bit of healing. She can also preload 2 airstrikes at the expense of a significantly increased cooldown afterward. Now, while her attack power isn't stellar, the preloaded airstrike actually gives you additional options for healing right off the bat, especially if she's in a mob fleet that has been hit hard. All in all, she's pretty much a kicked up unicorn. Actually, I just recently leveled up my unicorn. Then again, unicorn still does more damage, so our horse-hugging Lolly still has that going for her. Unicorn is still considered a Tier 0 healer after all, so no loss there. Our next construction pool only ship is Valiant, who is part of the Queen Elizabeth class of battleships. Elizabeth. Why am I having such a hard time saying that? Anyway, unlike Queen Elizabeth, Valiant does not possess faction buffing skills. In exchange though, she comes with something that Queen Elizabeth doesn't have, and that would be not 1, but 2 barrages. The first barrage fires 10 seconds after her main gun fires and can inflict armor break on opponents. And then the second barrage has a 50% chance to proc every time her main gun fires. The only issue with her is that Azur Lane's battleship selection is just filled to the brim with monsters that outclass Valiant from a performance standpoint. And that includes other Royal Navy battleships like Howe, which we just talked about, and even Warspite. She does make tier 2 in Usagi-sensei's list, so she's actually not that bad. Also, as someone who likes using off-meta ships, I certainly encourage folks to use her if they like her. Love the one you're with. Great philosophy. This brings us to the 4th construction-only ship, Eagle. Yeah, she sure looks familiar for some reason. So like Valiant, Eagle is not going to make the upper tiers of ships for endgame. That being said, she's almost a near copy of my favorite ship from the Skybound Oratorio event, Burn. Or Bairn. Bairn? Gosh, my French is horrible. I'll just stop trying. Yeah, so I was actually working on posting a video about Burn, but my narration audio had quality issues, so I basically have to do the whole part again. The lesson as always is, I'm an idiot. That being said, I love Burn's gameplay design and mechanic, and the same applies to Eagle. Basically, Eagle has the option to either equip a dive bomber on her 3rd slot for faster air strikes, or a light cruiser gun to gain access to a barrage. Where she differs from Burn is her 2nd skill, which launches a quick swordfish strike. Anyway, if you missed out on Burn, or want a variant on the French carrier's playstyle, then Eagle will be for you. Next up, we got a new member of the Dido class of ships, Hermione. Wingardium Leviosa. Yeah, so while it's possible to get her via construction, her drop rate is lower than the 4 previously mentioned ships, but fortunately you have 2 other options to get her. So one is either by farming the boss on the B3 or D3 event maps, and then the other is buying her straight up from the event store for 8,000 royal coronets. Hermione's stats are actually pretty close to Dido's, and she has a similar all-out assault barrage that triggers every 10 times that her main gun fires. She also has self-buffs, but they work differently than Dido's. Her self-buff from having Royal Navy teammates, for example, is limited to her damage, and then she also gets a flat 20% boost to her firepower, anti-air, torpedo, and reload stats if she does not have the lead position in the Vanguard. So like the leftmost position, I think. Now, while her ladder buff isn't quite as high as Dido's, it also relies on simple positioning as opposed to having a team stacked with Royal Navy ships. She also loses Dido's ability to buff Queen Elizabeth, but gets a 2nd barrage that procs every 15 seconds. By the way, that barrage also gets powered up if there are no enemies close by. So basically, Dido has better anti-air and buffs, while Hermione has a better barrage set. And while Hermione is still edged by Dido in tier lists, the gap isn't too wide. In fact, she's positioned between Dido and Jinsu in Usagi-sensei's list of tier 1 light cruisers as of the making of this video. And now we get the last main ship, which can be acquired by actually exchanging event points. So you can get the destroyer Icarus by accumulating 10,000 points from the event maps, and then collecting her as a reward from the special Aurora Noctis Icarus tab from your event list. You can also get additional Icarus ships after accumulating 20,000, 40,000, and 60,000 event points. Now, I haven't farmed enough points to get her yet, but it looks like she comes with a basic barrage, plus an additional special barrage, as well as a skill that reduces the damage she receives from torpedoes, and then it also modifies her own torpedo pattern. As with many Royal Navy destroyers, however, one of the main issues is her health. I mean, destroyers have low health in general, but Royal Navy destroyers especially so. And while it isn't as bad as the majority of the Royal Navy destroyers, it's still pretty bad compared to other destroyers in general, so here's hoping she gets a retrofit at some point. Anyway, you'll likely get 10,000 exchange points just by farming Royal Coronets for the event shop, so might as well get her for the sake of completion and getting her tech points up. Now, it's also important to remember that in addition to the main ships, there are also a few other ships of note that you can get from Aurora Noctis via event map drops. If you happen to be a new player who missed some of the earlier events, or an older player who didn't get these ships due to bad luck or bad RNG, we've all been there before. So anyway, there are actually 6 other ships of note that you can farm on the following maps. So A1 and C1 have a chance to drop Vampire, who you can also limit break to earn special points for the event's Royal Crown portrait frame. And then A2 and C2 have a chance to drop the Tsun Admiral Hipster. I mean, Admiral Hipper. She's not happy that you're happy to get her. You know that, right? Not happy at all. And then U557 or 557 can drop at B1 and D1. And then Deutschland can drop at B2 and D2. And then you've got, oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher these. You've got Gneisenau and Scharnhorst at B3, D3, and the SP map. Anyway, just be ready to get trolled by Glowworm and London while farming these ships. Regardless, the ability to get additional German ships is especially welcome if you're having a tough time getting enough Iron Blood tech points for those PR ships, so make sure to farm them if you can. As far as the event maps themselves, they feature a healthy amount of submarines and also a good number of planes, so make sure to bring some good anti-air ships, especially in the higher levels of the map, and also equip some anti-submarine warfare gear, or ASW gear, if you're having a tough time with those subs, especially if you're trying to conserve oil by fielding smaller fleet compositions, like 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or 2-to-1. Speaking of farming, here are some of the more notable gear blueprints from the event maps. I'm actually including some of the solid purple ones here too, in case you have newer players listening to the video. But there's also some gold gear in here that would be great for longtime veterans as well. Might not be as sexy as some of the previous events, but it's still pretty decent. So with A2, for example, you can get blueprints for the purple twin 203mm SKC-34 AP gun for large and heavy cruisers. And then A3 drops the purple quad 533mm torpedo, so that one's kind of solid too. And then B1 drops the purple basic sonar and improved depth charge if you need some anti-submarine warfare stats or boosts. And then B2 drops the purple twin 203mm third gear type, so there's that. And then B3 drops the purple triple 406mm Mark 6, which remains one of the best battleship guns in the game. So if you've got a battleship that has like a set timer for its barrage, as opposed to one where it depends on like the barrage needing to be fast, like this is a great weapon to have. And then C2 has pretty good drops overall. I mean, you get Admiral Hipper here, but you can also get blueprints for the anti-torpedo bulge, the repair kit, the purple twin 203mm once again, and then the twin 105mm anti-air. Also, the sirens and boss in this map have a chance to drop blueprints for the gold version of that gun, the twin 105mm anti-air gun as well. And then at C3, the sirens and the boss can drop blueprints for the gold Messerschmitt ME155A plane. I don't know why I said it that way. And then in D1, sirens and the boss can drop blueprints for the 533mm magnetic torpedo, which is one of the new gear in the event store. More on that later. And then D2 can drop the purple twin 203mm third gear type once again, while sirens and the boss can drop the gold 533mm quadruple homing torpedo mount. And then lastly, D3 drops the purple fire control radar and the purple 406 once again, the Mark 6. And enemy sirens and the boss can also drop the twin 381mm BL-15 Mark II, not to be confused with Boys Love for you Japanese manga lovers, which is one of the best main guns in the game as far as barrage-based battleships that need faster firing times. So this is kind of like the opposite of the Mark 6. So for battleships like Hood, for example, this one's a great gun. Next up, let's go through the event store. In order to buy everything that's being sold, you will need almost 89,000 royal coronets. I certainly know one guy who won't be farming that many coronets. Me. I honestly just don't have the time or even the patience to do that, especially since this is a new event, so you don't get the double bonus for hard mode stages. Anyway, if you're like me, you'll likely want to focus on the essentials. One of those would be Hermione, particularly if she refuses to drop from construction or event maps. And then there's the new 533mm magnetic torpedo Ox for destroyers and cruisers, which it's not as powerful as the Rainbow Torpedo Ox, but it's also still worth getting. Basically, it gives you 70 extra torpedo stats, so not as much as the Rainbow, and then 15 extra accuracy stats, but it also changes your first salvo of torpedoes into magnetic torpedoes, regardless of what torpedo you've got equipped. So this makes it great for PvP, as well as siren nodes, especially if you're doing autoplay. And then the other key item is the Gold Sea Hornet plane, which is a must-have as it now overtakes the F4U Corsair V17 as the best-in-slot fighter in the game overall. Anyway, Hermione, the Magnetic Torpedo Ox, and the Sea Hornet will set you back 12,025 royal coronets. And then for folks in the midst of the PR ship grind, blueprints are going to be the next priority, and so pun not so totally intended. And they will set you back 25,000 coronets by themselves. So if you add that to the other stuff from earlier, that'll bring your total royal coronet requirement to 37,025. And then everything else after that is gravy. Oh my gosh, my throat is so dry. Yeah, so for plates for updating gear, for example, you'll need another 4,500. So that'll bring your running total to 41,525 at this point. And then for newer players, tech boxes might be more important for filling out your gear. So getting all of that will require another 4,800. And then for folks who consider looks to be everything, if you want gear skins, that'll set you back an extra 20,000 for all of them. And by that I mean all the chances that you can get, since this stuff is random. Yeah, so anyway, that's the lowdown for the store. Other things you can get include a rerun of Vampire's Nurse skin, which you can acquire by fulfilling 7 daily tasks. And then you can also get the Royal Crown portrait frame that I mentioned earlier from points acquired through limit breaking certain ships, which include the 6 main ships from the event, as well as finishing certain event stages 10 times by using a fully limit broken Jamaica, Admiral Graf Spee, Vampire, and Belfast. Yeah, so that's the key stuff for the most part. Anyway, here's a look at the other offerings that you can get from the event. And there you go, a rundown of the Aurora Noctis event. In the meantime, I wish you calm seas and the best of luck in your pulls. May your pulls be good and your cubes be safe. Or not depleted. Yeah, otherwise if you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. Once again, this is Tabi Asobi, and thank you for watching.